Good evening, this is Jack from Charting the Markets, and this is the Bigger Picture webinar for the evening of Wednesday, the 4th of June. A disclaimer, I do this for educational purposes only. I'm here to share my technical analysis with you. I hope you can take some of what I'm doing, learn from it, transfer it to your own charts. I'm not here to issue trading signals. Right, this is, I'm going to start put up a paywall after the weekend, so I'm just mentioned it on Sunday. So Sunday's video is going to be the last one which isn't behind a paywall. Just a reminder on that. All right, great. In that case, let's have a look at what's happened today. Okay, I was talking about the possibility that we were going to see a window. I wrote a post a couple of days ago. I was talking about this, about being a window where we could see a further consolidation or retracement over a 6-day period, the first day of which was today, and today leaned bearish, and well, not a great deal happened today, but what did happen today was that we had 60-minute sell signals fix on ES, NQ, RTY, and YM. Now, the rest of the 6-day periods goes with a bullish leaning day on Thursday, bearish leaning day on Friday, bullish leaning day on Monday, and then bearish leaning days on Tuesday and Wednesday. Then that's followed by 3 bullish days. So that's the end of the window on Wednesday next week. So if we are going to see further consolidation or retracement, this would be very much the obvious time to see that. So we shall see how that goes. Apologies about the racket in the background. Okay, right. So we'll see. Not a lot happened today. We've got quite a lot of negative divergence here. Now, this kind of negative divergence can sometimes just be worked off by going sideways, and obviously we've worked off part of these signals today, which basically we're fixing just before they open, just by going sideways. It could be that we could see another day or two of going sideways to very slightly down maybe, and then and work all of it off, and that could happen. We've been used to seeing more dramatic declines and rises in recent weeks, but it doesn't necessarily always have to be that way. We will see. Where are the obvious targets to go down? I'm not sure there are any really obvious targets, actually. I'm not really expecting it to get below the weekly pivot this week at push 59.12. That's 60 odd handles below on ES. We'll see. Okay, looking at NQ, 60-minute sell signal fixed there. We actually went higher today, so that's gone absolutely nowhere so far. We'll see. Again, wondering about a back test of the weekly pivot. RTY, the same. This we saw a bit of a decline today, and that made a fair amount of headway towards the target, and YM did the most, and actually a little more, and that will reach the possible near miss target. We didn't have any sell signals on DAX or ESTX. Okay, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts, where, right, on SPX, on the daily chart, obviously we're holding support at the daily middle band. I'm not really expecting to see a test here, but if we do see a test, this is where I would expect to find support. That closed the day at 58.67, just over 100 points below. So that really is the area we're working within, except this is a moving target because it's rising. So the longer we go sideways, the closer that target will be. Looking at the hourly chart, we've got a weak RSI 5 sell signal fixed. I've got another one of those on the Qs. And on the 15-minute chart, I've got RSI 14 sell signal fixed, and I've got another one of those on the Qs as well. All right, looking at Dia. The RSI 5 sell signal, I've actually called the one on IWM because I tend to call them when it reaches the 70 level here. We've almost reached that here, so at which point I'll be taking that off, and then it just reached the possible near miss target, and I'm taking it off the open list. On the hourly chart, nothing really. We got pretty close to a retest of the high here. We weren't that far away on IWM either, but no current divergence. We do have an RSI 14 sell signal here, but that's already reached the possible near miss target. Looking at IWM, okay, 15-minute chart, getting pretty close to again a retest of this high. Very, very close in this instance. It came up to 210.01 vis-a-vis 210.13. That's quite important because, of course, I haven't drawn it in on the 15-minute chart. I've been looking at it mainly on the daily and the hourly. But, of course, we have a possible IHS forming here. And it is, let me brighten this trend line slightly. So let's turn that black and make it thicker and take the arrow off the end. Okay, this is obviously, as I was mentioning in the post the other day, this is a possible IHS neckline, and it's quite a nice one. It's really not bad. And if we see a break up from here, potentially this could take IWM back up to a retest of the all-time high. Hasn't actually broken up yet, but after this period of consolidation, I think we've got an opportunity to break up. We will see. Could this be derailed by deranged things happening in the administration? Absolutely, it could. But I put that forward as a proposal which would fit what we're looking at here in terms of the overall picture. But obviously the news is the news, and Trump is very hard to predict. So we shall see. Having said that, I did actually call in my post in about bonds in November. I did actually call this big beautiful bill issue pretty closely, and I'm watching that with interest, because what I was talking about there was that unintentionally and unwillingly, Trump might turn out to be actually quite a fiscally conservative president. Was what I was talking about was this big beautiful bill might get put forward and fail, which might make him behave more responsibly in terms of budget than he did in his last term, or he's trying to do so far in this one. Also, the alternative was that actually got the big beautiful bill through, and it caused a bond market crisis, because holders of US debt would have been particularly underwhelmed by it. Now, that again could force him to be very fiscally responsible for the rest of his term. We will see. But this is what I was talking about, and really we're coming up to that crux point now. Although it does look, with Elon Musk having basically is now leading the charge to kill the bill, it is looking as though it's not going to go through in anything like its current form. And that people are actually talking about the fact that the debt needs to go down, which it really, really does, rather than go up. Okay, looking at DAX. DAX, we've got a possible weak RSI 14 sell signal brewing, we've got an RSI 5 sell signal fixed. Absolutely nothing, no sign of anything happening there. Just made a new all-time high today. Keeping an open mind, but at the moment this is heading higher, and we're already well beyond all the old trend lines here. This has been on a tear. So, and as you can see, quite a lot of this gain is actually since the beginning of the year. This has really been doing very, very well indeed. And partially, I think this is because there's a rebalancing away from American equities towards European equities, which is why there have been years of relative outperformance by the US equities, and I think we're seeing a period where it's heading in the other direction. We'll see whether that continues. Looking at Nikkei, this is a possible IHS here too. It's not as nice, nearly as nice, because it's too large relative to the preceding trend. Not as nice as the one we've got on IWM, but I am wondering if IWM can make a retest of the all-time high, I'm wondering if Nikkei can do that too. So we shall see. All right, let's have a look at the DX chart. Okay, DX, we had a buy signal, it reached the possible near miss target, and I'm still wondering, I was saying on the pre-market video this morning that I'm still wondering whether we might make the head and shoulder target here in the 98.4 area, which we haven't quite made on either of these two lows. Alternatively, this could actually be a double bottom. So waiting for direction on that. We haven't quite reached the prior low, no current signals. All right, looking at ZB, this was interesting because yesterday the very nice rising wedge on this, which was likely to be a bear flag, was breaking down, and it then went up again today and then hit the existing resistance trend line. Now what happens in that situation is the original pattern has expanded. So what I've done is I've redrawn the support trend line to go through the new low, which is the one we made at the low yesterday. And we've got a larger, still very nice, rising wedge. Now, there is something else to mention here, and that is this. Hang on, let me just show you. We've reached a more interesting level now, and this introduces another potential option into what we're seeing here, and that is the possibility that we are forming an inverted head and shoulders, and look where that's gone. That's a completely flat flat neckline there. So this is an ideal hit of a possible inverted head and shoulder neckline. So what the other possibility that I'm thinking about here is that we might break down from this wedge, but it turns out not to be a flag. We just go halfway back and then we extend further in the bond rally. We'll see. But obviously the current news with the big beautiful bill could have some significant impact on this, so I'll be watching that. But anyway, we will see. But it's still a very nice looking rising wedge, and it's still potentially a bear flag rising wedge, but we've got more options than we did. And that being the case, I'm slightly more wary about whether this might actually not be a bear flag. This might be an IHS forming. So we shall see. All right, great. Let's have a look at ZN. And we've got a pretty decent looking channel here. Really not bad. And this again could be a bear flag. Not really seeing an IHS option here, but then we don't need an IHS option here because we've already got a nice looking double bottom that's broken up. But I do have a potential maybe, but I think I'd probably stick with the double bottom. It's a better pattern. So this has got a target up here, and I think about the 111. 28-30 area. So we will see how that goes. But I think we're likely to see a bit of retracement first. We're certainly finding resistance at this level that was the high today, and we've hit this trend line resistance here, but we've also hit this possible neckline. This is the obvious place to see some retracement, and then we see a decision as to where we go from there. All right, let's have a look at those on the bigger picture charts. Okay, US dollar, no current divergence. Still wondering about a retest this low here at 97.92, and we may well head straight down there. We're certainly not doing any kind of job at the moment of breaking up. I'm liking the downside more here, but obviously whether or not TNX is, US dollar has got the memo is another question. TYX, we've been seeing this strong rally on yields. We got up to 5153, which was a marginal high here, and we've got a potential overall level top here, although I'm not really expecting it to play out. What I would say is we've broken rising support, and we've broken the daily middle band. So this is potentially opening up more downside soon on yields and upside on bonds. Looking at TNX, on the daily sell signal, we're testing the weekly middle band, of course, from above, and that's a significant support level. On the daily chart, we had a daily RSI 5 sell signal fixed, and that made target today, and obviously we've broken the daily middle band with some conviction. Looking at the TNX chart on the hourly, this could be a bull flag wedge forming, but I'm slightly uncertain about the lower trend line. I was looking at TLT as well, where we don't have any divergence on the daily. This is too large to be a double bottom, but I was interested. We did have a possible head and shoulders forming here, but obviously we broke up higher. I've got a decent looking rising wedge here. Again, that could be a flag, but here, of course, you see again, we've hit a possible inverted head and shoulder neckline. We could see a partial retrace and then a break up from that. So this potentially could lead to an immediate retreat on ZB, followed by a larger move up on ZB. And that could happen. We're in a pretty volatile area in terms of bond sentiment here, and obviously what's happening with the big beautiful bill here, if the big beautiful bill is killed off, then that's going to be good for bonds, pretty much unambiguously. I think part of the reason that bond yields have been so weak is because this has been in motion. If that gets killed off and looks as though it won't get past anything like the current form, then that's good. And bonds will be happy, and we could see a sizable rally. So we shall see. All right, let's have a look at CL. Now, CL did almost nothing today. So we are still thinking about doing a full retest of this high and seeing whether we're going to see a break over this nice looking flag resistance trend line, but possible. I've drawn in a possible alternative up in the 67 area. We could see a break up towards that. Not seeing any strong reason to think that we would see that. We've got a nice looking flag on HO as well. If this breaks up beyond this declining red trend line here, that would open the way to head up towards the blue one. So I am wondering about a rally up into that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see this break down instead. We had a 6-minute sell signal fix that's reached the possible near miss target today. We didn't do a great deal of damage in terms of where it went. Bob, I am wondering whether we've already seen one wedge on ZB turn into a larger wedge. I'm wondering if we might see the same here. We don't have an obvious topping pattern here. We'll see. Well, I am wondering if we might see a retest for high and then possibly see a test of this trend line here. So watching for that on gasoline. All right, looking at NG. NG, we've seen a bit of a rally here. We've got a 6-minute sell signal fixed. It's holding up and so far appears to be forming a bull flag. Could we see a larger move up here? Yes. And even if the overall lean is bearish, it could be an A, B, C could be forming a larger bear flag, in which case I'd be wondering about a move up into about the 4.3 area. Not a lot to indicate that at the moment, but there's not a lot to indicate it's going down either. So it's just another possibility I want to toss in the mix. All right, let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on that. And hang on. Right, WTech. Getting pretty close to the daily upper band, no current divergence, and nothing particularly close at the moment either. I do have a nice looking channel here, and I would note I was talking about the possibility of retest the low and whether we would break that trend line, because that would be quite important. But the other thing to mention here is this is a falling channel, and we've hit channel support. There's always a possibility we might get a channel resistance. Now we've got two declining resistance trend lines here. The first one is here in about the 66.3 area, and the second one is all the way up here in about the 77.5 area. So that's just bearing it in mind. It's not really a good fit with anything else here, but I am wondering about it. Okay, heating oil could be bottoming out here, but at the moment this looks more like a bear. This is kind of looks as though it might be an IHS, but it's not, because this is the lowest low of the three. I'm leaning towards this being a bear flag in all probability, which of course is what I've got drawn on 60-minute chart. Looking at gas oil, wondering again about this being a flag, although it's messier, which it is on the 60-minute chart as well. Looking at nat gas, I'm thinking we could see more upside here, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it go down directly. We'll see. At the moment, I'm still leaning towards it holding the weekly middle band at 3.7 as resistance, and we're tapping up against that at the moment. That's been pretty good resistance the last few weeks, so I'm watching it with interest here. If we do see a move up, we could be just heading back into retesting this high here in the 4.5 area, setting up a little level top and then going down. But I'm keeping an open mind. We don't have any real signals at the moment. We will see. But there's nothing really saying much in terms of direction in the very short term. All right, looking at GC. GC, we've got a breakup from what is, I think, pretty clearly a bull flag megaphone. So this has got a target and a retest this high. Sometimes that can take a while. It's basically a new all-time high on gold we're looking for. Sometimes this can take a while. Looking at the one on silver, that really did take a while. I mean, we broke up from the flag here. We were kicking around here for, what, a week and a half? And then we went up and made the target. That's not that unusual. Maybe we'll do the same on gold here. But I would say if we do see any kind of meaningful decline in the next 3 or 4 days, that might be a good opportunity for gold to go and make that new all-time high. So I'm watching for that. But at the moment, there's not much sign of anything interesting happening on ES. Certainly there's very little sign of that today. We have got the signals, we've got the divergence, but it doesn't necessarily have to result in anything more than the consolidation. We'll see. All right, palladium. Palladium, we had a nice buy signal. We had a double bottom. It broke up. It made target. Had some couple of nice patterns here lately. So I am wondering if this might continue higher. This looks like just a pullback, bullish consolidation before it goes higher at the moment. On platinum, this looks like an overall bull flag, which is setting up to retest this high. This is of particular interest because with this move here, we broke out of the compression range this had been in for a couple of years. This could start making tracks to the upside. HG, still looking for a retest of this high here in the 4.98 area. I thought I had a note on the chart mentioning that. No, I think it's in the notes on the evening post. But I'm still leaning towards seeing that, and we'll see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at metals on the bigger picture charts. Okay, gold. We've got no current divergence apart from the old RSI 14 cell signal that's fixed, which has just about survived over the last few weeks, but I think it's too old for me to be taking it particularly seriously. This looks like a flag which has broken up, and that's because that's what it is, I think. On silver, we went up, retested this high at 34.86, and I've got a couple of trend lines that I'm watching, and I think both of them are marked on this chart. Nope. The higher one's marked on here, and that's at 38. They're both marked on this chart. I've got the two trend lines here. This is the first one here. I've got that in about the 36 area, and I've got a second one here, slightly over 38. I'm rooting for the 38 one, but I am thinking the one at 36 is pretty decent. We could see a pause or possible reversal there. But I'm pretty bullish on precious metals, and I'm particularly bullish on silver, which has really not been a big participant in the precious metals rally over the last year or so. I'd like to see that start to catch up a bit, and I think it might, but we will see. Really, it needs to get over 38 to do that. Okay, looking at platinum, I'm still wondering about a retest of this low, but it may be that we're just going to see a low here without a decent bottoming pattern, which there really isn't here. So we did get pretty close to this low here at 823. Maybe that was close enough. If it broke up, I put in the targets for it being a double bottom, but without a huge amount of confidence they might deliver anything. Okay, platinum. As you can see, we've broken up from the range. I'm wondering if this might be a follow through to the upside, retest the obvious next target, which should be 1179.81, and possibly continue up to retest 11,336.50. I'm not that optimistic about a big move here, but I am wondering about A, B, C. Maybe a rally which gets back half of this move down, and forms what could be a bear flag setting up a retest of the low. We'll see how that goes. At the moment, that's highly speculative, but I am thinking this is the way you quite often see it go. I'm thinking this is the way this may well develop. We shall see, but there I'd be looking for 1400, 1500 area, ideally. We shall see how that goes. All right, let's have a look at copper. And copper, this is really just kicking around. The daily middle band I've got at 4.67. We're a bit above that at 4.88. I'm leaning towards seeing this go lower soon. In the short term, not a lot to say, but I think the big thing I'm looking at here, because I am expecting to see, we saw some bad economic news in terms of new jobs created yesterday. I'm expecting to get more, and as the months pass, I'm expecting to get quite a lot more, because actually what's being done at the moment makes no sense. I mean, for instance, I think, I can't remember whether I mentioned it before, but when I was studying economics at school, and this wasn't college level. This was before that. So they were teaching us Keynesianism and demand, managing demand on in the economic cycle, as really we've been saying an awful lot over the last 20 or 30 years. And one of the things they said was, if you want to keep the tax level stable, but you want to introduce more demand in the economy, one thing you can do is tax people who are richer, and then reduce the taxes on people who are poorer. And because poor people spend a higher proportion of their money, then that will increase demand in the economy. It strikes me the big beautiful bill, which looks as though it won't go through, does exactly the opposite. It is basically taking money again, redoubled by the fact that tariffs again go for the lower income amounts will spend more of their income on it, much more of their income on it than the higher income areas. And what this big beautiful bill does is it actually turns that up on its head. So this isn't something you'd expect to stimulate the economy. You'd expect it to suck demand out of the economy. We'll see how it goes. But I've got to say, I think this particular administration has an argument to be the most economically illiterate administration in certainly, since Hoover. And really seems to be making so many of the same mistakes that Herbert Hoover made in the early 30s, which obviously didn't turn out well. We'll see. And maybe it'll turn out a lot better than that. But I have to say, just on basic economics, it doesn't look great. All right, looking at GDX. GDX on the daily chart, we have made a higher high here, which I was expecting. Not got a lot in the way of negative divergence. We did have a 60-minute sell signal here that failed. On GDX, J, that's made a higher high too, and we had a 60-minute sell signal here too, and that failed as well. No current divergence, but very nice move to the upside. This has not been followed through by higher highs from gold, but I suspect that's coming soon. We shall see. All right, we'll have a quick flick through the currencies. I don't think there was anything particularly interesting last time I looked. Euro, I'm leaning towards this going higher. That would fit with the dollar going lower. I've got some nice trend line resistance above. GBP, don't really have a strong opinion. USD JPY, now this has been interesting because we had a buy signal, then we had a sell signal. As long as we don't see a break up from here, I'm leaning towards this going lower, which again supports the dollar going lower. So we'll see. Not a lot to see on the others. CAD's been pretty tedious lately. Could be forming potentially a nested double bottom, but not a lot to indicate that we are. Australian dollar, no current divergence, and it's just sort of heading sideways really. And NZ, retesting the highs, a weak 60-minute sell signal is fixed. There's not really a lot happening. But I'd say the two which are the most important, well, the three that are most important are by a very large margin, the euro, which is 57% of the index, and I think the yen is 9% of the index, and I think the pound is 7%. Those are the three big players, and the two largest ones are both leaving me thinking that the dollar is probably heading down into that low retest yet, and just below 98 next, so we shall see. All right, let's have a look at KC. Now KC, we've got a pretty nice looking falling wedge here, and after I drew this trend line, we then came and tested the support for it and found support there. So this really is a very nice looking wedge. So I'm kind of leaning towards a test of the weekly pivot, and then we see whether it breaks up or whether we see another leg down again. I quite like another leg down because I quite like to see this low retested in the 324 area. We'll see. All right, let's have a look at SB. SB, this looks like a larger wedge forming, although it'd be easier to say that if I actually had a decent looking trend line, which I don't. I've got an option, but I am thinking unless this turns out to be a double bottom, I'm going to redraw this so the declining resistance trend line just moves, and that's just become a little more shallow. Looking at CC, we're still at a point where we're either going to fail this IHS, which would lean towards higher prices, or we're going to respect it, in which case we still got an open head and shoulder target, which is down here in the 76.25 area. We shall see. All right, looking at cotton, still got a possible double bottom here. Had a chance to break up, didn't take it. Lumber, we had a weak 60-minute sell signal fixed here, and it made target while doing almost nothing. So lumber, as I've been mentioning, has been rather boring lately. Looking at wheat, I've still got a potential inverted head and shoulders here. I'm still wondering about a possible level bottom on corn. On soy, gotta say, this is kind of looking like a bull flag. Even if it is a bull flag, though, I would comment that we could be heading down for this support, which is currently in the 1025 area. Looking at ZL, we've got a possible head and shoulders, which is broken down here. Not the prettiest pattern in the world, and I am wondering whether this might be a bull flag as well. Live cattle, I've been saying for days that I'm leaning forward seeing A, B, C, and a lower low. So far, live cattle is showing no signs of complying. And HE, I've just extended this line because I think this rising wedge might be expanding. If we find resistance there, I've got that currently at about the 108.25 area. We will see. But I think I'm quite liking that, and I think this wedge might well be expanding. We shall see. All right, great. Let's have a look at the bigger picture charts on those. Okay, looking at coffee. Wondering about a retest this low here in the 3.26 area and maybe lower. That could be part of an overall bull flag forming, but I have to say, by historical standards, coffee reached a very, very overvalued stage this year. So there's always a lean after a big retrace like the one we've seen already, see it revert to the mean, which is not even close to doing that. Looking at sugar, we've got this big head and shoulders, which is trying to break down, and we've got this possible bull flag, which may be underthrowing bullishly. I'm actually liking the bull flag better, so I'm rooting for that. The week's RSI 5 buy signal, however, is no longer brewing. We've lost the divergence for it. All right, looking at cocoa. Cocoa, on the bigger picture, again, we've reached stratospheric levels. We're finding support at the monthly middle band, and actually we found a lot of support in the monthly middle band. We've got test here, test here, test here, test here. I've got that now in the 82.73 area. If we could see a breaking conversion of that, this could go a lot lower. So although I'm not expecting it to get down to almost zero, which is what these arrows would tend to suggest, but that's just because this is a double top, and that's the way you measure double tops. This is an oversized pattern, which I wouldn't expect to make target. All right, looking at wheat. Wheat, was wondering about a full retest of this low, but I've quite a nice looking inverse head and shoulders forming here. I'm thinking this may well head up directly. So we shall see. Okay. Right, looking at corn. Corn, wondering about a short-term low here. Nothing in terms of positive divergence. Looking at soybeans. Soybeans, this could be a large bear flag forming. But really a retest of this high first, and possibly a test of this trend line here, which would be neat. And the 1084 area might be the next thing to see. Really. On cotton, we've got big falling wedge. I think we might be seeing a big low forming here, and that this could be a double bottom that's already in place. Short term though, cotton's not been doing a great deal. Lumber, again, this looks overall like a bear flag, and given what I'm thinking is probably going to be happening to lumber over the next year, that's actually not a bad fit. So we will see. In which case, kind of looking for it to head back to flag support. We shall see. In that case, well, I think that's a wrap. I will catch you guys again on Sunday, and everyone take care.